But there is a shocking number that we already have out of Alberta, and that is the fact that an Edmonton woman in her 20s died after contracting COVID-19. A case that Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam, highlighted as she emphasized the need for caution, no matter how old you are.
Hearing of young people being hospitalized due to COVID-19 and people as young as in their 20s dying of the disease. This is a serious health threat to everyone. And although older ages are most at risk, no one can predict when critical illness will strike someone at any age.
Dr. Theresa Tam, as she spoke at one of those national briefings, we'll get another one at noon today. I want to introduce you to a couple, though, that knows exactly how true Dr. Tam's words are. Justin Alexanderson is with me, and Emily Peck, a beautiful couple, joining me from Toronto. Good morning to both of you, Justin and Emily.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for telling your story to us today. Justin, how old are you?
I'm 29.
29. And Emily?
I'm 25.
And both of you have recovered from COVID-19. 29,
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
Justin, how do you think you became infected?
I believe we caught it when we were out at a restaurant, March 14th. I believe that's when we got it.
From just contact with people there, you were out going about your normal young people lives, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And contracted it there March the 14th before the restaurants started to shut down in Toronto. Emily, you went out. You had a social night out. Before this, what did you think about coronavirus, and how seriously did you take it for a young woman in the prime of life?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, prior to all this happened, I did see a little bit in the media, but I kind of thought I was immune. I didn't really think that it would happen to me, and I wasn't seeing much in the media, so it wasn't a serious concern for me.
And then when you headed out that night, Justin, had you had any discussion, or was it even in your mind at all, or did you just went out for a social evening?
Not really. It wasn't. We didn't really know much about it at that point.
But then a couple of days later, Justin, what happened?
As soon as we got sick, mainly looking back on things now, mainly started with really big headaches. I actually thought I had a sinus infection at first, and went to the doctor, and everything that I explained to him for symptoms wasn't even on the COVID-19 radar at that point. And he thought I had a sinus infection. I actually got prescribed antibiotics, and it was mainly just the sinus pressure, lack of smell and lack of taste, and the major headaches and fatigue that were the worst part of it.
So that's interesting, lack of smell and lack of taste. The science subsequently has shown that seems to be an indicator, but early on, he maybe wasn't thinking that. So he gave you medication for sinus infection. And then what about you, Emily? What did you experience symptoms-wise?
Yeah, it was very similar. I think the biggest thing that I noticed at the beginning was kind of a brain fog. You kind of just feel out of it. And then a couple days later, I started experiencing extreme fatigue and body aches. And and then I was kind of just bedridden for 2 days.
And when you finally got that diagnosis, Emily, you just told us before you went out, you felt immune, you're 25. To hear you have coronavirus, what was your reaction?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, to be honest. And I think when we did feel sick for those first few days, that wasn't even on our radar until we had heard that we had come in contact with a couple people that also tested positive. Is when we started to take it more seriously. And I think the biggest concern for both of us is, well, Justin was still going to work and I had been into work one day. My concern was that maybe I spread it to someone that was more vulnerable.
We've heard that from many people who have contracted this as well. They're worried about spreading it to people whom they know. How sick did you get with this, Justin? How did it feel?
For the first 5 days, it was just major headaches and body aches. And then there was the following weekend, the fever and the pains really set in. And it was about 3 days. And then I remember the fever broke. And it wasn't like I haven't felt like anything like this before. So once that happened, we decided to go get tested, and tested positive.
So you were that sick before you even had the definite diagnosis. Was it similar for you, Emily? You never felt anything? Maybe you can give us, when you were at your worst in dealing with this, what it was like to experience.
Yeah, I think at the very worst, I would say almost like a hangover, or Justin, I've never had a concussion, but Justin said it's kind of like a concussion. And yeah, you can't get out of bed. You're so exhausted. I think I slept the entire day. I was maybe awake for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So a couple of questions. I mentioned in introducing you that the youngest to die of this in Canada so far is a young woman in her 20s in Alberta. You've doubtless heard that. You're in your 20s. You've also had that same diagnosis. How does that make you feel, Justin?
That's the first time that I've heard of someone that young passing away from it, but that is absolutely horrible. One of the big things that I realized when I posted to my Instagram that I had been infected with COVID-19, I had a lot of people reach out that were very similar age, and a lot of them were experiencing very minor symptoms. And that's why I think it's super important to stress the point that, you don't stay inside to not get it, you stay inside to not give it. And I think that we really need to follow that rule a little bit more.
That is a great line, to not get it, but to not give it. And Emily, maybe I'll give the last word to you, because again, coming back to what you said at the beginning of our conversation, how you went out that night feeling immune. 25, no health issues, going out with friends. Why wouldn't you do that? And then becoming one of the cases in this country. What might your message be to other young people who think they too are immune to this?
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I felt. And I just wanted to say that anyone can be affected. Like, this virus doesn't discriminate. And unfortunately, we even have friends that are our age and they're on ventilators now. So although you may think you might be immune, and it's possible that you could have it and have no symptoms, but the fact of the matter is if you're out socializing and you come into contact with, say, your grandparents or someone that's a little bit more vulnerable, they might not be as lucky.
I thought I was going to end our conversation there, but you've just raised something. You have friends who are on ventilators right now who have also contracted this? I mean, to know that you are recovered, but you have friends who have the same thing who are on ventilators, and that's obviously the most serious development in this. Justin, I mean, how does that put into perspective for you?
Yeah, we had a lot of people reach out to us, a lot of random people as well. There's two people specifically that were on ventilators, and one of the gentlemen, I believe, is around 30 years old. I'm not that close with him. However, we've been in contact through text, and he was in really rough shape for a while. And he's a young, healthy individual, and very active, and no underlying health conditions or anything like that. And it was pretty touch and go for him for a while, from my understanding.
So do you feel then, Emily, that you've had a real brush with this? I would imagine pretty grateful.
Yeah, I actually feel very lucky to have experienced the symptoms that I did, because I know they can be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Well, I too am very glad that you've come through this as well as you have, and I'm also very glad you're sharing your story, because they are having some difficulty getting young people to follow the messaging to a certain degree, and your story is important in showing that people in just the blush of youth, heading out doing normal things, can really end up in a very dangerous situation if they don't follow the rules. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the time with both of you today.
Thanks for having us.
Heather.
Continue good health. That's Justin Alexanderson and Emily Peck. Went out on March the 14th and contracted coronavirus.